Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Ebony Riley, and I'm Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for National Action Network. National Action Network is one of the leading civil rights organizations in the nation with chapters throughout the entire United States. Founded in 1991, NAN works with the spirit and tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to promote a modern and civil rights agenda that includes the fight for one standard of justice, decency, and equal opportunities for all people, regardless of race, religion, nationality, and gender. At this time, I would like to introduce our founder and president, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you very much, Ebony Riley, and sorry for being tardy, but Mr. Trump didn't let me use his plane to get here. On January 14th will be the Saturday that kicks off the holiday that commemorates the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. There's no more appropriate time than for civil rights leaders and faith leaders and others to raise to this nation that we cannot have the dream and principles of Dr. King violated as we now go into a new administration. It is for that reason that we are collectively announcing that we will have a march and rally from the Washington Monument area to the King Memorial, and where we will lay out an agenda called that we cannot be moved on the areas of voting rights, the areas of dealing with income inequality, and including the racial disparities in employment and access to capital, in the areas of health care that has been done a tremendous advancement by the present administration, and in the area of criminal justice, where the present president has commuted more sentences for low-level nonviolent drug offenders than the last 11 presidents combined, and police reform, that we will not be moved and we will not stand by to watch a change in the presidency or the Congress rescind in these areas. This will be a march to begin a process to protect gains won and to keep moving forward. It is at that time that civil rights and faith leaders will lay out how we intend to call on our constituents to aggressively be present inside and outside confirmation hearings, and to challenge the parties that agree with us to show some backbone in questioning those nominees that have taken positions against voting rights, that have taken positions against the criminal justice reform, that have taken some positions that violate the principles of civil rights and inclusion in this country. We see a majority in the Senate and the House, but we also know that for closure you need 60 votes. And Democrats ought to remember that there were those that blocked a lot of nominations of President Obama. So they should not be trying to get along with opponents of civil rights better than they get along with the constituents that sent them there in the first place. So our march is not a commemoration, it is a beginning of a season of accountability and a season of protecting what Dr. King fought for. Last week I was on a program and talked about how I think Mr. Trump will fight. He's an out-of-borough New Yorker, and he is not the kind of guy that does not fight back. But so are we fighters. In fact, Mr. Trump called me later that day to my surprise. I'm not used to getting calls from Mr. Trump. And we agree that we disagree. And we agree that this is going to be a battle that all of us will see, where what we view as what's best for the country. So I do not want us to think that we will back up one iota when it comes to police reform and criminal justice reform and equity in jobs and wages and in terms of our voting rights. We have come too far and too much blood is shed to back up now. We've lost an election, but we've not lost our minds, and we've not lost our integrity. And we will stand together, the National Action Network with the NAACP and the Urban League, and importantly, our clergy will be in the leadership. Martin Luther King was a clergyman and led from a moral base that did not matter to him who was in office. Let us remember, he started the Montgomery boycott while Eisenhower, a Republican, was president, and set a climate that Kennedy and Johnson came into pro-civil rights. But he even opposed Lyndon Johnson on Vietnam. This is not about party to us, this is about principle. This is about policy. I remember Ronald Reagan called Martin Luther King a communist and said he did not deserve a holiday. But I also remember that because of a movement like this, Ronald Reagan signed into law the Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday. So the holiday this year reminds us of what Dr. King stood for. It should also remind the right wing that the man that signed the holiday, who they herald as one of their transformative leaders, Mr. Reagan, signed something he never intended to do. Get used to it, Donald, because King's Children is going to duplicate that in this time. We will hear from, in this order, Melanie Campbell, President and CEO of National Coalition of Black Civic Participation, then Don Cravens, who is representing Mark Morial and the National Urban League, and then Hilary Shelton from the NAACP. He's our 101st Senator and represents the NAACP Washington Bureau.
Thank you, Reverend. And thank you, everyone, for this moment. I also represent the Black Women's Roundtable. And one of the things that we, Reverend, you mentioned the King holiday, it was a sister who made that happen in the late Coretta Scott King and all of us who were there with her. And so as a Black woman standing here today, we know that one of the things that we lifted up is that this election also showed that we have a racial divide in this country that has to be a part of this unifying moment. It's also a reality that Black women are not going to sit idly by and let of affordable health care be rolled back on our children and our children's children. And so we're here to just stand in solidarity with this march and with Reverend Sharpton and all of our colleagues and faith leaders to say that we're not going back to a place that we ourselves, maybe our parents or our grandparents went through. It's on our watch that no matter who is in the White House, no matter who is in the House and Senate, that our issues remain the same. And that those of us who are here are professing to be in leadership. We have to lead in good times, and we have to lead in bad times. We don't know what this is going to be. We know it's going to be something very, very different based on what we're seeing in this process. But we're going to be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that our issues remain the same, no matter who is in the White House or the Congress. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Cravens, Executive Director of the Washington Bureau of the National Urban League. I'm proud to here this morning on behalf of my boss, Mr. Mark Morial, our President and CEO, as well as the 88 affiliates of the National Urban League, which are in over 30 states, including the District of Columbia, all over this great land. The National Urban League was founded in 1910 because Black men and women were leaving the Deep South, trying to escape Jim Crow, moving northward in hopes of a better life. And back then they were fighting for really 4 basic necessities. Fair housing. They wanted to be able to get a good job to pay for their kids. They wanted to be able to send their kids to school, get a good education. And they wanted to make sure they had good health care. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in 2016, moving into 2017, and we are fighting for many of those same basic necessities. And so, Reverend Sharpton, the National Urban League and our affiliates, our movement, our youth movement, our guild movement, we are proud to join you on January 14th, 2017 for the rally and the march, We Shall Not Be Moved. We will bring our movement in full force to continue fighting for those four basic necessities of health care and housing and jobs and education. But we also will have heavy on our heads and our hearts the issues of criminal justice reform, meaningful criminal justice reform. This Congress, as we stand today, this existing Congress, with this current president, could pass meaningful criminal justice reform today, Reverend, if it so chose to do so. We are asking it to do so, but if it does not, we will be knocking on those doors again, starting on January 14th, asking the Congress to take some action. We want a restoration of Voting Rights Act, of our Voting Rights Act. This past election was the first election in over 50 years that there were not the full protection of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And so we will be knocking on doors nonstop, knocking on the White House door nonstop to get our restoration of a Voting Rights Act. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we need some police reform, and we need it drastically. We need it now. These issues have always existed in our community. But thankfully, because of technology, we're now able to see these issues as they unfold. And so we're going to be knocking on doors in Congress and trying to work with this new administration, if he will work with us, to get meaningful police reform. Brothers and sisters, in closing, I just want you to know that we have been proud. My boss, Mr. Morial, has been proud to stand with the National Action Network, Ms. Melanie Campbell, the NAACP. This is not a one, this is not an I, this is a movement of civil rights leaders, and we are proud to be part of that movement. Thank you very much, Reverend Sharpton.
Thank you very much, Reverend Sharpton, for gathering us all here today to begin our continuation of our movement to change America. My name is Hilary Shelton, Director of the NAACP's Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President for Policy and Advocacy. It's a wonderful thing that we're thinking about our next steps forward. We've always been part of a movement and not just a moment. We recognize the challenges in our society and that it cannot be done in one stroke, because in many cases, as we've been able to advance, one step forward, two steps forward, there's always a one step back push. Unfortunately, that seems to be where we are today. We're there today, and it's why it's so important that we recognize on Dr. King's, I believe it's his 88th birthday, as we move ahead to this particular time, that our movement must continue. A movement to address the issues of health care. And the battle cry seems to be to repeal and replace, but we're not sure what we're replacing it with, yet we know that over 20 million more Americans now have health care insurance than they did 8 years ago. When we look at the issues of our criminal justice system and recognize that 24 million Americans were imprisoned at the time Mr. Obama took office in 2008, we've actually had over 200,000 people removed from those prison cells. It's time for us to continue the movement forward. We still have to fix the problem. We march because we have to talk about the issues of employment and employers. Because on this day and any given day, when we look at the outcome of our labor statistics, we find that African Americans are unemployed at rates that are twice as high as the American standard. When we move forward to address issues of housing discrimination and other issues of home ownership, we know that in 2008, when we began this quest forward, over half of African Americans have lost their homes, and the wealth involved there. We have to march to continue to fix this problem. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. We address the issues of quality health care and public education very specifically. We know there are big struggles over what will happen, and even as we look at the nominee that's being presented thus far, the head of the Department of Education, what we don't see is someone that seems to recognize the challenges in the African American community or the communities we serve. When we talk about access to higher education, we know that over half of African Americans are very low or have very little income. What that means is, as it's time for them to consider colleges and universities, we need fixes that will allow our children to be able to go as far as their minds and their vision will take them, and not just their mama and daddy's pocketbook. We know as we move forward, we have to address the issue of judges that are going to make the decisions and interpret the laws. But what we have, unfortunately, is leadership that seems to be connected to those that would very well cut out, even filling a very important position that's available in the U.S. Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and all the issues important to us. And finally, we have to march because we just came out of an election where we know that our votes were not protected. We know throughout the country that very well one of the most important components of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was inoperable, and we know that for over 2 years, the solution has been sitting before the Congress for those who are still in charge there. So Reverend Sharpton, we join you in moving forward to address these concerns because it is a movement. The movement forward in which we've been under worse terms than we are now, but we're not giving up yet. We'll continue to move forward. We will redouble our efforts, and before this is all over and done, our communities will be remembered and our problems will be solved. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Let me also remind Joe Madison, who is a premier African-American national correspondent, commentator and host, the Black Eagle, who will also be one of the hosts at the event on the 14th, reminds me that today is the anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycott, which is one of the reasons we wanted to announce it today. Today, in 1955, under a Republican president, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus in Montgomery. And it is on today we are having this press conference announcing what we will do on King Weekend. I and others are honored to have spoken at Rosa Parks' funeral. We are not going to allow them to turn this around. Let me also now bring on our faith leaders. I know Reverend McNeil, who I'll be speaking at the Capitol Ministers Conference this afternoon, and later at a church we're starting a nationwide drive among our churches and our colleges. We're at Howard this afternoon. We intend to really not only have a huge event on the 14th, but the follow-up to put pressure on the Senate. Some people need some political surgery that we can implant a backbone in them so that they can protect our rights. Minister Reverend Ball will bring on our faith leaders. Reverend Ball in the D.C. area is our coordinator for faith leaders.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. We're going to have Reverend Charles McNeil come and give a statement. He is the president of the National Capital Baptist Convention. Following him, I'll share brief remarks with regard to millennials. Following me will be Aisha Brayvart. She's the attorney for Maryland Business Clergy. Then we will have Imam Albert Sabir of the Masjid Muhammad, the Nation's Mosque. Following him would be Rabbi Batya Stanlov of Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington, in that order.
To Reverend Sharpton, we stand united with you. We have several ministers across various faiths with us today, but we gather today out of our concern for our families, for our churches, and for our communities, because an ugliness called hatred and evil, called bias, has arisen once again and revealed itself. Today we plead and appeal to our faith-based leaders to call upon reforms that will protect our citizens, policies that will focus on the care of millions, regulations that will not suppress liberties, but enhance participation and involvement. So tonight at 7 p.m., December 5th, at a rally is being held at the Southern Friendship Missionary Baptist Church located at 4444 Old Branch Avenue in Temple Hills, Maryland, where the Reverend Dr. Welton Fields is the pastor. This is also a preparation for the march on January the 14th, 2017 here in Washington, D.C. We are marching to ensure that those who have been elected and nominated do not forget the words spoken by President Abraham Lincoln on the afternoon of Thursday, November the 19th, 1863, at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. President Lincoln spoke these words that are often quoted as a description of democracy. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. We're marching to preserve historical programs, decisions, and policies, while challenging future policies, decisions, and programs that will divide, separate us because of gender, race, or religion. Grassroots organizations, along with the National Action Network, headed by the Reverend Al Sharpton, have joined forces to echo the voices of the people. We march because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We're caught in the inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly, as stated by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So join us in preserving the legacy. Join us in this march.
Reverend McNeil. I'm standing as a millennial faith leader, the pastor of Uplift Church in Laurel, Maryland. I'm calling on all millennials to show up on January 14th. We are the largest generation in America's history. When we speak, people will have to listen. Reverend Sharpton had a call with over 150 millennial leaders on this past Friday where he shared with us the importance of our coming together to change a national narrative. So we're inviting millennials from colleges, millennials all around the country. They're already making plans to take bus trips to show up on January the 14th. We cannot sit this one out because too much is at stake. When it comes to voter rights, it impacts us. We've been marching and we've created way too many hashtags. Now is the time for us to flood the streets in Washington, D.C. to demand change. Millennials, I'm calling you, inviting you to show up January 14th in Washington, D.C. to tell this administration and this Congress that we shall not be moved. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aisha Braveboy, and I'm here in my capacity as an attorney for the Maryland Business Clergy Alliance. However, I am a proud member of the National Bar Association, and I chair the Legislative Committee for the National Bar Association. And I can tell you, Reverend Sharpton, that we have been actively paying attention to what is going to happen on the 14th, and we want to join you. So I will definitely put you in touch with my president, Kevin Judd, so that we can be a part of this growing body of people who will not be moved. And when you think, when I think of my responsibility as an attorney and as a citizen and as someone who's been trained in constitutional law, I recognize now more than ever that we need to become a part of every movement that takes place in America. Because attorneys, we protect your interests. We protect the Constitution. We protect the promise of America. And without us, I think we're not as strong. And we're here today to tell you that we will protect you. We will protect your babies. We will protect the black and brown men and women who are trying to fulfill the American dream and live in a world that we have been promised would be there to protect all of us. It is our responsibility to ensure that America protects all of us. So I'm looking forward to working with you, and I just want to say something that the millennials say. I want to say I stay woke. And let me tell you why I stay woke. I stay woke because I listen to the Black Eagle every morning on Sirius XM, channel 126, and he is quite amazing. Thank you.
You get a kiss for that.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, and that's peace, God, peace be upon you. With Allah's name, with God's name, gracious and compassionate. To Reverend Sharpton, to our leadership, to the leadership of brothers and sisters in faith, our fellow Americans, citizens, I'm grateful and honored to be standing with you shoulder to shoulder. I'm representing Imam Talib Sharif, who's in travel, and he's the president and imam of the nation's mosque, Masjid Muhammad, an 80-year community, the oldest Muslim community here in our nation's capital, and one of the oldest in the U.S., with our mosque currently located on the street named Islamic Way. Now we say to you, and give you a little history,